You've got to have critical thinking. You've got to be able to challenge your own as well as other people's assumptions. In the first couple of minutes with an investor, to hold their attention, show them what you've achieved.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our last session of Entrepreneurship 101 for this year. I'm very glad to see you. I know the weather's nice and there's a hockey game tonight, so we'll do our best to end up on time. Who here has heard Peter Evans speak before? We got the fan club in the front. You guys are old hands. Peter's one of our strongest speakers, and actually we've had him do the pitch for a number of years. And before that, he was doing our marketing lectures. So I actually encourage you guys to go online and check out some of his other videos. He has a really unique way of expressing what's needed for a pitch and marketing, things to learn about marketing. A little bit about Peter's background. Before he was an entrepreneur in residence at Mars and the founder and CEO of Speakerfile, where he is an entrepreneur right now, he worked for 20 years in technology in large organizations and venture-backed companies in the areas of strategy, research, product development, business development. Over the last 12 years, he's been working with startups, over 150 companies. He specializes in investor preparation activities in a variety of markets, ranging from photonics to peptides to consumer apps. Peter, unlike a lot of the Mars advisors, actually jumps around. He's not just ICT, he works in clean tech, he works in life sciences, so he's really seen a range of companies, which makes him perfect for this lecture. His clients have been funded by VC funds such as the Charles River Ventures and Sequoia, and they've won awards at investor events such as TiEQuest, CIX, and the US Angel Capital Association. He's also been on both sides of the table as an angel investor himself and also running an angel-backed startup called Speakerfile. Speakerfile is an enterprise content marketing platform that allows organizations to make their experts more visible to events and media. So if you're looking for a speaker for an event or a conference or some sort of big thing, he's got lots of great speakers on his website. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks very much, Carrie. I've been told to kind of stay on stage because I have a tendency to wander off. So I will come out into the audience periodically, though, and I hope I don't frighten you guys. But wanted to get started. We've got a lot of ground to cover this time around. It's going to be a very similar format to what we've done in the past, where we have to get through a fair amount of rudimentary stuff that speaks to some of the core components of a good investor pitch. So I apologize in advance. Some of this stuff is going to be exciting because you're going to get to see real live pitches that have raised real dollars, very successful CEOs doing this, raising money from people like Charles River Ventures. Lisa Crossley with QDT won the Angel Deal of the Year in the US. So this isn't some sort of ABC company fill in the blanks exercise where it just feels so generic that you don't understand the context. You're going to see real deals. Other times I'm going to show you some information that looks kind of boring, but we have to get it done. It's going to at times feel like we're assembling IKEA furniture very methodically. And at other times, we're sculpting something really beautiful when you look at some of the pitches that some of these CEOs have done. So let's get into it. We're going to talk today about other people's money. OPMing it, as we often say, is actually a whole different ballgame when you get into this. And you are now moving beyond friends, family, and what we often call fools. Not true. And those aren't angels, by the way, as I often like to point out. But friends, family is a whole different dynamic. It's love money. Going to other people's money and taking that step into getting somebody to serve you with a term sheet or come in on those terms that an investor that may not know you as well is a whole different thing. It fundamentally changes everything. What I want to talk tonight about is something called the investor paradox, that actually gives you a good level set in terms of what's going on both sides of the table. Entrepreneurs want to get to yes. They want the investors' money. They want to move forward with their business. Money is that major barrier in many cases to growth. But at the same time, it's a numbers game for many investors. The better the investor, the more deals they see. The better investor, the faster they can process this information that's coming in. And it is really, at the end of the day, the shields that go up that investors have erected over time. This whole getting to know is really, it's a defense mechanism. They can't say yes to everything that they see. What we have is this whole notion of what I call Venus and Mars. Pardon the pun, but entrepreneurs are looking for, they want capacity with the investor. Do they have funds to invest? Is it compatible with their investment profile in terms of the type of investment and the geography? Do they have a portfolio, the investor that they're looking at, in terms of deals that they've done in the past? Are there like-minded deals? Can they strategically bring some value to the table with the kind of sector that they invest in? And is there any directly competitive investments? You're hoping, and this is something I often caution investors on, is be careful of fishing expeditions. Investors aren't famous for this, but in some cases they may be doing research on you because they have other deals that they're looking at in the sector, or worse still, a portfolio company that they've made an investment in. And also you want to see a successful track record, ideally, as an entrepreneur in the investor that you pick. On the opposite side of this, though, we've got investors that are looking for a team. I'm going to talk to the power of teams tonight and the importance of team in the investor decision. What's the percentage that the team means in some cases on a scale of 1 to 100 points? How many points would you give the team? Show of hands. Anybody? Want to throw one out? Give me a hand. Anybody want to take 80 at the front? Anybody else have a guess? Is it lower? I've heard 70, I've heard 80, I've heard 100. I rarely hear below 70 points that the team is about. It's a really important thing because in many ways, as we'll talk about, the team can overcome bad markets. They can pivot better. They can pivot faster. How many pivots you have before you run out of cash is how lean startup works today. IP. They're looking for some sort of business model or intellectual property as evidenced by patents filed or patents granted that provide some entry barriers in terms of the market that you're working in. Early customers are often what many investors, no matter how early the stage when you move from friends and family, they want to see early customers. They want to see some proxy of success there. No customers, definitely a warning sign if that's going on too long. And lastly, they're looking for some sort of significant technological advantage, ideally, if they're a technology or science investor. They're looking for some sort of a platform, not just a minute feature that could easily be invented by somebody else. So when we talk about this engagement, this process of moving the investor along through a process of education and communicating to them on 3 different levels is where we're trying to get the job done. We're trying to do it emotionally, we're trying to do it rationally, and we're trying to do it at a financial level too. We have to appeal to their greed as an investor. And often if an investor is not greedy and looking to invest in you for that reason, that can also be a warning sign as well. Investors should be greedy. You should be greedy in terms of the money you want to make because it turns everything in the business. So let's talk about why things can go really wrong before we talk about how to correct them. What's one of the worst things that an investor can say to you after you've finished your wonderful 12-minute presentation? We're going to talk about the 12-minute format today. It's probably one of the worst questions you could ever hear. I'm going to come into the audience for this one. Do I have a volunteer? Let's have one. Come on. What's the worst thing you could hear after you've gone on about your business for 12 minutes? Let me think about it. Yeah, there's even worse, actually. You wouldn't hurt me with that one. Yes, sir. You well-dressed man over there. I'm sorry? Have you put any of your own money in it yourself? Do you have skin in the game? Good question, actually. Sir?
What if they ask, what?
What?
Like they didn't get it.
They're what?
If they didn't get it, their question.
They didn't get it. Good. You know what? I actually think that's probably the worst question that you could be asked after you're done. But I'm sad to say that when I see a bad presentation, this is the one that comes up. I still don't get it. I don't know what you do. Let's see a couple more. Isn't your product a nice to have versus a market need? We've heard about pain and aspirin. We've heard about vitamins and health. What sells better? When we're in pain, aspirin sells better. And when investors look at deals, they don't like vitamins, nice to haves. They're looking for pain. If you can't simulate pain or you can't communicate it through the clients that have bought it, trying to solve a real market need, you've got problems. The third one, is your market big enough? Market opportunity, we're going to learn about that tonight. 4, I still don't understand how you make money. Is this a problem for an investor? Absolutely. 5, are you underestimating your go-to-market costs? We talk about things like the cost per acquisition for a customer. If you don't know those numbers, that's problematic on the longer term. At first we don't, but we need proxies. Okay, whether that's PPC campaigns on Google with AdWords or LinkedIn, all the way through to going out and doing business development activities in a B2B model where we've got to meet with fairly complex customers. Couldn't your competitors copy you is another one that's important. Often that comes up in terms of entry barriers. We talked about that in the context of patents. And do you have the right players on your team? This team always comes up a lot. Now, I would wish all investors were this honest. Sometimes, I won't even put it down to honesty, but sometimes they just want to be Canadian. And they want to walk away and they don't want to hurt your feelings. They don't want to burn bridges because God knows you're going to be successful at some point and you're going to come back to them. But I sometimes wish that they would come out and say all these things. But what you're going to find is that a lot of investors don't. And one of the things you want to do is neutralize a lot of these questions by applying certain principles of the pitch. And how I'm going to frame what we're going to go through tonight is how to really connect at an emotional, rational, financial level by doing pitches that speak to some of these principles around story, thinking about a storyboard and actually making it a narrative that engages people and doesn't put them to sleep. Disneyfying with images and visuals, graphics, with frameworks that make sense. Not necessarily those really big clip art things that make your, adds a lot of cheddar to your presentation, cheese factor. We don't want that. At the same time, investors are in the people business, so it's important that you personify the pitch and bring the team out that's behind this, the investors, the channels that you've got in your business plan, bringing it to life. Avoiding too much detail, not getting into buzzwords. All of that stuff is an important part of what we call simplification. Remember that in the pitch, what we're trying to do is drive to the next meeting. We're not trying to get the term sheet at the end of the day. It's important as well that you quantify, that you be conversant with metrics, and always use numbers in the pitch wherever appropriate. Not too many numbers, but at the same time, wherever you've got stats, whether it's from an analyst report or it's customer data, it's always appreciated. And lastly, I want you to think of 3 connecting words between everything you tell an investor and the evidence that you have or the proof as evidenced by ... That's what scientists are trained to do. You always want to have evidence to back up a lot of your claims. So we're going to go through the components of the investor pitch deck tonight. And basically what I've done is I've taken a lot of components and I've consolidated this into 4 main areas that I think you've got to do to get the job done. And we're actually going to model these slides across a 12-minute pitch, which is a standard pitch format that we use in our Mars Angel meetings to prepare people. It's not 20 and it's not 5. It's about it's just right. It's like Goldilocks and the 3 bears. This bowl is just right at 12 minutes. The real problem, we are solving one that actually is painful right now to a market that wants to pay us. That market is attractive as such. We also have a unique advantage. That might be the team, it might be our patents, so a whole variety of things that we bring to the party. And lastly, while we brought those 3 things, we've structured an investment for you, Mr. and Mrs. Investor, that is compelling, both in terms of the money that we're looking for and what we're going to do with it. So pacing your investor pitch is about, I'm going to use broad numbers here, very, very rough guidelines. I don't want anybody later going, Evans said I can only spend 3 minutes on the real problem. Spend as much time as you want. I'm giving you what is just a standard rough estimate of time, so please bear that in mind. I also want to make a disclaimer both here and to our TV audience out there that, I'm just one guy who does pitches in a certain way. Everybody will move you around and give you advice on how to do your pitch. At the end of the day, you're the one doing it, you're the one in charge. There is no one way to do a pitch perfectly. And that's what makes communication in general a very, very interesting, mysterious art. It's why ad agencies make so much money, is because it isn't a binary thing. It is a mixture of art and science. So I'm constantly humbled by the entrepreneurs that teach me something every day. So 3 minutes here for the real problem. We want to go to an attractive market, and we want to take about 3 to 4 minutes in that range there. We want to show unique advantage in about 3 minutes. And then we want to show that compelling investment with the deal terms, the structure, the amount of